Asia-hot China stopped all liquefied natural gas imports from the United States in just 60 days. The reason is simple. Under the influence of the tariff war, each LNG ship needs to pay an additional tariff cost of up to $16 million, which makes Chinese companies completely turn to other suppliers. The first to stand up and decisively seize the U.S. market share was Russia. 2 weeks ago, China paid a state visit to Russia and attended the celebration of the 80th anniversary of the victory of the Soviet Union's Great Patriotic War. During this period, the two sides signed more than 20 cooperation documents, covering traditional areas such as economic and trade investment, and extended to non-traditional security cooperation such as global strategic stability and maintaining the authority of international law. Among the agreements reached between China and Russia this time, several items are particularly eye-catching. Putin made a clear commitment to China. Gazprom will further expand its gas supply to China in addition to fulfilling its existing contractual obligations. In other words, Russia is willing to supply as much as China needs, even more than other countries. It is worth noting that before this, the construction of the China-Russian natural gas pipeline was accelerated across the board. The development of the Arctic route was fully launched, and several energy projects worth hundreds of billions of dollars were also accelerated. While the West is still immersed in the containment strategy, China and Russia have already quietly established unprecedented in-depth cooperation in energy, security, technology, and even geopolitical channels. So how much change will this highly coordinated cooperation between China and Russia bring to the world pattern? As a relatively clean fossil energy, if you like our video content, please click to subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you can receive all our latest video content. Now, let's get into today's topic. Natural gas is widely used in many fields, such as industrial production and residents' lives. For a big country with a population of 1.4 billion, China's demand for natural gas has jumped to the first place in the world. Data show that by 2025, China's natural gas demand is expected to exceed 456 billion cubic meters, while their annual production is only about 261.9 billion cubic meters. This means that almost half of the natural gas demand needs to rely on imports. In fact, this high dependence is not a short-term phenomenon. In recent years, China's natural gas imports have steadily accounted for about 43% of total consumption. Although domestic mining technology has been continuously improved, it has always been difficult to fill the huge supply and demand gap, and import dependence remains severe. Therefore, in order to ensure national energy security, China continues to promote the diversified layout of import channels. At present, China's main sources of natural gas imports include Russia, Australia, Qatar, Malaysia, the United States, and the United Arab Emirates. Among them, China's total natural gas imports in 2023 have exceeded 120 million tons, and Australia's share has once risen to 45%. Of course, in the past decade or so, the United States has also gained a firm foothold in the Chinese natural gas market with its price advantage and abundant shale gas reserves. For example, the landed cost of U.S. shale gas is about $30 per million British thermal units, while the price of LNG from the Ruwais project in the UAE is only $18, a price difference of nearly 40%. In 2024, China imported about 4.33 million tons of liquefied natural gas from the United States, accounting for about 5.6% of total LNG imports. However, this pattern changed rapidly after Trump returned to power. In February 2025, the United States announced a 10% tariff on Chinese goods worth $200 billion. In response, China imposed a 15% tariff on U.S. LNG. Subsequently, the tariff war escalated rapidly. On April 4th, China imposed an additional 34% tariff on all goods imported from the United States, bringing the comprehensive tariff rate of U.S. LNG to 49%. With the superposition of tariffs, Chinese companies had to pay an additional tariff cost of nearly $16 million for each ship, worth $45 million of LNG. The price advantage of U.S. natural gas was instantly wiped out, and it completely lost its competitiveness in the Chinese market. As a result, China completely stopped importing liquefied natural gas from the United States within 60 days. But even without the natural gas supply from the United States, other countries also wanted to grab this piece of cake from the United States, so Russia stood up at the first time. In May 2025, China paid a state visit to Russia and attended the celebration of the 80th anniversary of the victory of the Soviet Union's Great Patriotic War. During the visit, the leaders of China and Russia held closed-door talks for more than 7 hours and signed more than 20 cooperation agreements covering energy, security, science, and technology. Putin made a direct statement: Russia will give as much natural gas as China needs. This is not only a statement of commercial cooperation, but also a strong endorsement of strategic mutual trust between China and Russia. So the question is, how hardcore is Putin's unlimited promise? At present, the China-Russia Power of Siberia natural gas pipeline is operating at full capacity. In 2024, the natural gas delivered to China through this pipeline reached 31 billion cubic meters, which is equivalent to 3 times the annual gas consumption of Beijing. According to Chinese data, in February 2024, Russia surpassed Turkmenistan for the first time with a slight advantage and became China's largest pipeline natural gas supplier. In that month, Gazprom exported up to 2.5 billion cubic meters of natural gas to China, while Turkmenistan exported 2.4 billion cubic meters. This change marks that Russia's position in the Chinese energy market has been further consolidated. It can be seen that the Power of Siberia pipeline is crucial to China, and its existence almost fills the market gap after the withdrawal of U.S. natural gas. So, what is the origin of this project? It is understood that Power of Siberia is one of the most representative energy cooperation projects between China and Russia. The construction of the pipeline started in 2014 and was officially put into operation in December 2019. The total length is about 3,000 kilometers. The diameter is 142 centimeters. The designed annual gas transmission capacity is 38 billion cubic meters, and the total investment is as high as 55 billion US dollars. The core purpose of the project is to expand Russia's natural gas supply to China through this cross-border pipeline. But as the pipeline reaches full capacity, China's growing demand for natural gas has exceeded its carrying capacity. This also prompted China and Russia to launch the planning of the second large-scale natural gas channel Power of Siberia 2. According to the plan, the total investment of pipeline number 2 will exceed 20 billion US dollars, and the total length of the line will be about 6,700 kilometers, of which about 2,700 kilometers are located in Russia. The design plan of the project is starting from Dalnarkinsk in Siberia, going south through the central region of Mongolia, and finally connecting to China. Once completed, it can deliver up to 50 billion cubic meters of natural gas to China every year, far exceeding the scale of pipeline number 1. So far, Power of Siberia 2 is still in the negotiation stage. The Russian side said that the two sides have reached an agreement on all technical parameters, but there is still a key issue that has not been finalized: the price of natural gas. In addition to this number 2 pipeline, there is another more exciting new project between China and Russia: the Far East Pipeline, scheduled to be put into operation in 2027. The project has an investment of up to 11.5 billion US dollars and a total length of more than 800 kilometers. After completion, it will be able to supply 10 billion cubic meters of natural gas to China every year. According to the plan, the Far East Pipeline will start from the natural gas field on Russia's Sakhalin Island. Natural gas will be transported to Russia's Far East through underwater pipelines, passing through Komsomolsk and Khabarovsk on the Amur River, and finally arriving at the Sino-Russian border city of Dalnarkinsk, for where it will be connected to Hulin City, Heilongjiang Province, China. From the current overall layout, the Power of Siberia 1 pipeline built by China and Russia has a maximum annual gas transmission capacity of 38 billion cubic meters. The Far East Line, under planning, is expected to transmit 10 billion cubic meters of gas per year. And the Power of Siberia 2, which is still in the negotiation stage between the two sides, is estimated to have a maximum annual gas transmission capacity of 50 billion cubic meters. In other words, if all three pipelines are put into operation, Russia's annual natural gas transmission capacity to China will reach an astonishing 98 billion cubic meters. If Russia can use Central Asian countries to achieve third-party transshipment in the future, its natural gas exports to China are expected to exceed 100 billion cubic meters per year. What is more noteworthy is that just a few months ago, some experts in the U.S. energy field also predicted that by 2030, Russia will surpass all competitors and become China's largest fossil energy supplier. At the same time, the U.S. share in China's natural gas market may be close to marginalization. Of course, China-Russia cooperation is far more than the field of natural gas. The development of the Arctic route is a more strategic project. As early as 2023, China and Russia have begun to jointly invest in ice-class ships and port construction and set out to open up the Ice Silk Road. The goal of the project is to create a new channel to replace traditional energy import routes by developing the Arctic route, avoiding shipping risks in the Strait of Malacca and geopolitical instability in the Middle East. According to the information currently available, China and Russia's development plans for the project involve as many as 73 investment projects with a total value of more than 100 billion US dollars. Once completed in the future, departing from Chinese ports and traveling to Europe via the Arctic route will save an average of 20% to 40% of the voyage compared to crossing the Panama Canal or the Suez Canal, which is equivalent to shortening the transportation time by 10 to 20 days. The shortened transportation time will directly reduce fuel consumption costs, and the fuel costs of using the Arctic route can be reduced by more than 15%. But you may not know that the Arctic route has another significant advantage: almost no tolls. In contrast, the single toll for each large cargo ship through the Panama Canal or the Suez Canal is as high as 400,000 US dollars to 500,000 US dollars. The Arctic route itself is not an artificial canal, so it saves high tolls and reduces the overall transportation cost by up to 40%. In terms of safety, the Arctic route also has a natural advantage. Traditional maritime transport routes need to pass through the war-torn West Asia region and the South Asian waters where pirate activities are frequent, which poses a high security risk. The Arctic route is mainly located in the northern coastal area of Russia, and the route is relatively stable, which will help significantly improve the shipping safety of the Chinese fleet. It is worth mentioning that the Arctic region is extremely rich in oil and gas resources and is known as the Second Middle East. It is estimated that the Arctic region has unproven oil reserves of about 90 billion barrels, natural gas reserves of 47 trillion cubic meters, and combustible ice reserves of 44 billion barrels, accounting for 13% of the world's unproven oil reserves and 30% of natural gas reserves, respectively. In addition, the coal reserves in the Arctic region are also very impressive, at least 1 trillion tons, exceeding the total amount of proven coal resources in the world. Therefore, the development of this project will also help open up new overseas resource development and procurement channels. At present, the Yamal transport fleet, jointly established by China and Russia, has 15 Arc-7 ice-class liquefied natural gas carriers, which can sail autonomously in Arctic waters with ice thickness of up to 1.5 meters. However, from the current transportation capacity, these ships are still difficult to meet the growing energy transportation needs of both China and Russia. In order to achieve year-round normal navigation of the Arctic route, China and Russia will need to continue to invest in the construction of more polar-specific ships in the future. Over the years, the United States has been trying to squeeze the strategic living space of China and Russia through multiple means, such as political pressure, economic sanctions, and military provocations. However, Facts have long proved that these operations have not only failed to achieve their goals, but have also led to closer strategic coordination between China and Russia, accelerating the deep linkage between the two sides in the fields of energy, technology, and geopolitical security. To not miss out on our future projects and news updates, please make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. We will continue to provide you with more exciting and interesting content.